I can't. I'm now section 4, other us. In other words, is it possible for us to imagine an other us, like an us that is somehow not this us? And sure, it is. Of course, it is. I mean, people are doing that all the time. Everybody's always saying, "Well, couldn't we have this?" It's like, yeah, we could have that. Sure, we can. If enough people, if there's enough political will for it, you can do it. Yeah. I can't tell you though I I can't tell you how you should resolve these issues, right? Which I wish I could. But my experience is that, as I said in this last section, that doesn't actually work. I can tell you from one human to another, um, as a group that I respect, especially for our differences and worldviews, that we understand politics and economics and education, and spiritualism and justice and law and morality and the concept of beauty, what is art and what is not art. These are things which the choices that we make, we're going to want us to understand very differently, and that's the way it has to be. Absolutely, I mean that's just how it is, and so duplicating ourselves is not actually at all a good plan. It's like no, 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 don't try it. Let's not try to that. What you're trying to do is make common cause between people. So that you're saying, I I recognize in this issue of yours a similar issue of mine, and so I'm sympathetic. How can I help? And they look at your other issue and say, I don't know about that, but you talked about this. I do know a little bit about that, right? I'm sympathetic with that, even if I've never heard of it before. You have my support. Okay, that's an excellent start. So the things that I've got four. I almost always have four, right? Or three or four. In this case, I've got four things that I choose, and this has come about over. It's at least 30 years of sort of slowly figuring out this stuff, but it's slow, as I say. And my choices have changed over the last, well, probably the last 20 years. Well, no, yeah, 20, I don't know. They've changed. They've changed a lot from when I started teaching. What I believe when I started teaching, I think similar things now, but they're also very different. They're recognizable. I can see the germ of them there. I can see the seed sprouting. I'm like, oh yeah, hey, look, this was a little plant. Now it's a tree. I'm like, yes, I believe, in this. I believe, for instance, in this first thing is I choose feminism. I believe that patriarchy has failed us, and that it is based too much in testosterone competitions, which are effectively war in small, and that men engage in small wars with each other very often, every day, or their surroundings. All labor must be well compensated. I don't care what it is. Nobody does useless work unless they're gambling on how other human beings behave, in which case that can stop. When I look at the stock market, I think, no. If you want to lend somebody money, lend them money. If you want to speculate about how it's going to go, no. Your job is not here to gamble on how other people are going to do. Your job is to make sure they do it and help them one way or another. So nobody engages in useless leisure activity, for me, as much as the stock market. I get it, that the stock market produces numbers, for want of a better word. I mean, the stock market can run up an amount of money and destroy an amount of money in a very short amount of time. But the real job of the marketplace originally was to support people who had ventures. And I think we have to stop gambling on that and start helping, basically, instead. And I think we have to prevent it from being possible for people to make a living gambling on what other people are actually doing. It's like, no, that's if you want to gamble in your spare time for fun, okay, no problem, you know. But gambling with the world's future, no. So that's a leisure activity. And for me, the market is essentially a video game. People who serve us coffee, who, if we're in a hotel, clean our rooms, have to be paid a serious living wage. They have to actually be able to live because they have children and families, and they need to be able to send those children and families to school and give them health care and make sure that they're living in a place which is safe. And if things go off the rails, then it's like, okay, fine, you know, we'll. That's why we have other systems to take care of things. It's not the be all end all. It's the beginning. Okay, so that's that. The second thing is that in choosing feminism, I'm also choosing caring labor over killing labor. No more killing labor. So I'm for turning the economy around and focusing our full efforts on health, education, and basic needs. Whatever weapons we have right now, that's it. No more weapons. No more building weapons. We don't need more, and we don't need newer. We have enough for pretty much ever. Certainly, my lifetime, that's for sure, and for your lifetimes too. No, that's it. Stop. No more weapons. The third thing is, the third thing, is that I choose people and not stuff. That is the planet and not consumerism. In doing this, I also am choosing art and culture, which I value, and I would value those extremely highly, as well as the world of episteme, of understanding, of consideration. Every person I've ever taught has been convinced to set aside things they love at which they excel. And I cannot really now, I mean, I should have started keeping records right away, but I cannot calculate the number of people, just about every student I've ever dealt with, at a point that I get to know them quite well, where they have not, everybody has given up an instrument they loved, or learning languages, or weaving, or theater, musical theater, or dance, or painting, or pottery, or filmmaking, or image making, picture taking, or jewelry, or sports, something the person has been forced to give up because very simply it is not monetized. It cannot be made to mean something in the marketplace. And that is, for me, a great sadness, because these are the people I'm talking about are, you know, they're 20, like many of you, and they're like, well, I had to give that up. And then, you know, they'll come in, and every now and then somebody will, I've had people come in and, you know, show me their songs and do a little singing for us, and man, I've seen people do paintings and design work, and you name it, I've seen it. I mean, I've seen sculpture, I've seen jewelry making, I've seen weaving, I've seen all kinds of amazing things. People making films and making little books, and I've seen, you know, my third and fourth year students engaged in all kinds of amazing creative work. And they're like, and I'll say to them, you know, so what do you think about that? Like, you know, it's just, it's not going to work. You know, I can't, no, I'm going to want to have a family, and that's got to come first. It's like, okay, that's a problem. So I choose people and what people do, and not stuff. And I think that would be better for us holistically. The fourth thing is that I choose the other. And this is really the hardest, because I think we have to, and this is what I suggest in Et maintenant à vous, which is Labaki's conclusion, which is that you have to become the other. There, in fact, has to become no other, only self. Not in some terrifying kind of dystopian Orwellian way where, you know, everything is the self, and you sort of maintain this kind of moving war, ongoing war, you know, where you're always at war. One unit is always at war with the other units. But we have to learn that the not self, we have to learn what that is, and ultimately forget the self. That we have to learn to put ourselves where somebody else is, and get so good at it that their pain is ours, and as long as it exists, we are working to ameliorate it. And this, in many ways, is the solution that Le Guin's narrator hints at in Omelas. That you can't obviously live in Omelas. That's not going to be morally acceptable in the context of the story. So what are you going to do? It's like, well, you got to go ameliorate the pain. And if in ameliorating the pain that causes other troubles, you have to accept that. This is why this thought experiment, and it's a thought experiment, is a good place to start, but not a good place to end, and certainly not a good place to. It's like, yeah, that's a good start, but then the fable falls apart, but it's a fable. It's very, very useful and very powerful. Right? Okay, so these are the things which I have chosen. They're not the only things, but they're the things that I can think of that have come to me over the course of a long time of studying and reading this specific material. I don't have at the moment any better answers for you. But I can say that I am delighted to have a discussion with you about any answers that you've got. Always.